I believe we're rolling. Good morning, everyone. Today, let's talk about magical diaries. I read a little from this diary yesterday concerning, and I showed you some illustrations and things that I used to adorn. That's me meditating there. I'm writing in a book. I think that I have mastered drawing hands. And then there's the hands that I've mastered. But anyway, this dealt with a rather advanced magical retirement within my home. It was a 50-day ritual, 49 times 49, plus the last climactic day. And it was for a specific purpose for work that I was doing at that particular grade level, quite frankly. And I showed you more or less how I organized that thing, and it's truly highly personal, and it was written for my own private purposes of journal keeping and everything else. But what I didn't point out was that was diary number 7 in a series that started way back in the early 70s. And this particular one picks up in 1981. And so there's a whole lot of other diaries and other records and other magical adventures prior to that. And I thought you might kind of be interested in the funkiness. The funkiness of my early diaries. Let me start by saying that somewhere around 1972, I don't know exactly when because I wasn't keeping a diary then, but I joined the Rosicrucian Order Amorc. And my brother had joined Amorc. He started taking the correspondence course letters. And eventually he joined the local lodge in Long Beach. It was Abdiel Lodge, full of lovely people. And he talked me into joining Amorc. He says it's like Masons, only there's women. And well, it was like Masons in so much as everyone was over 60 years old. And they did indeed have women, and most of them were also over 60 years old. And I was a young 27, 28-year-old ex-musician trying to figure out what to do with my life that didn't include singing in saloons. But be that as it may, I really enjoyed the Amorc experience. First, there was like a correspondence course of self-initiation, and there's various degree levels and things. And that's where I sort of fell in love with the rhythm of the initiatory process. And I eventually became active in the local lodge there in Long Beach, starting out as the inner guardian and then as the chanter. I love the chant. You chant vowel sounds and kind of prior to meditation. And then I became chaplain. And long about the time that my chaplain year was up, and there was a chance for me within the next couple of years of being master of the lodge myself. But I certainly didn't feel like master of anything, actually. But anyway, I started making, this is just an old cheap ledger book, okay? A blank sort of ledger book. And this is where I started to paste certain things that I found in books about Kabbalah and things like that. And it was at the Amorc Lodge that I first sort of heard about Aleister Crowley. And, or first heard his name. It didn't dawn on me until a few years later who he was or anything else. But this, I guess you could call it my first diary, even though none of it is dated. I put all my Kabbalistic notes from Amorc. Eventually I would join the traditional Martinist order. And all my notes, and they're like preliminary Kabbalah notes, okay? And most of it is taken from material that I was reading in my collateral books on the subject. And so let's see, what else have I got in here? Things like this, the mansions of the moon, my own natal chart. And but the point I want to make to you is I had absolutely no freaking idea why I was doing any of this stuff. It just seemed like an obligatory body of work that I should start immersing myself in. Here's notes from a Martinist Kabbalah lecture. Things like that. And so it was long about 2, maybe 3 years into all of this. And you got to remember that during all of this time, I was going through a readjustment period in my life where I was transitioning out of the music business and into God knows what. I was been a musician, professional musician since I was 14, and I had absolutely no preparation whatsoever for objective reality. I was a musician, and it worked for a while. But anyway, so I started seriously with this diary number 1. And I painted that Sator Arepo Tenet Opera Rotas thing on the front, admittedly, because I thought, ooh, that looks spooky, you know. Also, I had bought an old edition of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage, which also had that on the cover. So I figured, well, if it's good enough for Abramelin the Mage, I'm going to put it on my diary thing here too. So this is, let's see here, that's my magical record from November 21st, 1974 to October 12th, 1976. It was a wild period of my life. I think I was writing the diary just to keep myself from being completely overwhelmed by reality. I could use a little of that wisdom right now. But anyway, on the first page, I can see why writing a diary is great, because when you look back at this 40 years later, it helps you understand who you are now. Okay. That Hebrew word there is the Hebrew word for temple. And I've written a quote from one of the Rosicrucian temple lectures. You are to learn how to command all nature. God will be your inspiration. The philosophers alone will be your equals. The highest intelligences will be ambitious to obey your desires. The demons will not dare to approach the place where you are. Your voice will make them tremble in the depths of the abyss, and all the elements will deem themselves happy to minister to your pleasure. So mote it be. So, I start off by identifying myself with my motto, or the degree that I was in the Rosicrucian Order Amorc degree structure. Now, you can become a Theoricus and a Neophyte and all of that, and a Zealator, just by opening up your your email, or there was no email in those days, just by opening up your correspondence course. But I'm identifying myself magically with my degree level. I think that was about the 4th degree for the Rosicrucians. And the opening entry here is in from the notes I took from a experience that I had. It wasn't psychedelic. It was psychedelic in nature, but I took no drugs. In November, and it was a very important one. I write about it in My Life with the Spirits, the procession of Nedera. Tune of silver bells, sung while holding a cardboard box of bath powder, light pinkish lavender. There was an arpeggio, an organ arpeggio. Nedera, Nedera, play by myself in the rain. Okay, Nedera was the only female among several male or sexless specters, waving and throwing kisses from a vehicle. A parade of them walk in the vehicle. They filed past me, standing unashamedly naked in a shallow swimming pool with soap suds. I got drunk on whiskey of my own. This is the dream. I got drunk on whiskey of my own, which I hid and drank tonight with a friend, a short man in a top hat in 1800s clothes, very elf or leprechaun-like. In the dream, I had lost my job and was late to another. I was driving the car that I inherited from my father. So my father's car that he gave me turned into my car, which was a 1950 Chrysler at the time. And so, get this, I'm digressing here. I was driving my father's car in this wild vision. And then my father's car turned into my car. And I put it in drive, and it went sideways. And it slid into that pool. And that's when the parade came by. And when I recognized Nedera as someone incredibly important to my spiritual life, for my incarnation, for my being. And when she gave me that box, she says, all you have to do to be with me is to look into the box and go, Nedera, Nedera, play by myself in the rain. Okay, I know it's a crazy ass thing, and it had nothing to do with the magical ceremony or anything else that I was doing, except I was getting all mystified by this Rosicrucian thing that I was in. So that got me going, okay. The next little section of the book is practicus pensator. Okay, practicus is the next grade, and pensator, that's when you choose a motto. Okay. Uh, by now it is January 27th, 1975, I think. Yeah. Now, the reason I'm picking this particular section is because this is where I start applying to and will eventually be initiated into the OTO. Okay. And it's full of all sorts of oaths I take. From this day forth, I do vow to be ever increasingly receptive to the influence of the superconsciousness, and I further affirm those vows taken in the holy sanctum, Cro Mat. So mote it be. And it looks like I'm starting to draw pentagrams, and I don't know if I am doing formal pentagram rituals at the time, but I'm identifying with the number 444, which I still identify with, because if you add the it's easy to transpose directly the letters Lon Milo DuQuette to get them to add up to 444. Lon is 150, Milo is 150, and DuQuette is 144, or 12 squared. Be that as it may, I was starting to play with all of this stuff, and I write about how 8:35 p.m. I should have added Dublin, California. Initiated 0 degree Minerval OTO by Frater Grady McMurtry and Soror Phyllis McMurtry, Dublin, California. November 16th, Dublin. I talk about a dream that I had, which is relative only to me here. But later that day, I went to San Francisco with M and A. Okay, Meryl is Phyllis, and A is Alpha, because Grady was Hymenaeus Alpha. So went to San Francisco with Phyllis and Grady. On the way home, Phyllis and I talked at length about magic. Many things were cleared up. All's beautiful beyond belief. I know that the insight of the trip home may fade. But let the record show that in the OTO is indeed the key. Earlier, Phyllis demonstrated the lesser ritual of the pentagram. We talked about that dream I had. Monday, the 17th of November, 6 a.m., 6:15 a.m. While all things are fresh in my mind, I would like to recall my stay in Dublin. And this is where I should have just started with this today. Grady and Phyllis have been perfect hosts. Grady has had to spend most of his time at his job in Berkeley, and I did not meet him until after Saturday evening, shortly before initiation. I have been Meryl, Phyllis, almost every waking hour since I arrived, when her first question was, "Have you had lunch?" We liked each other right away. She's a wonder cook. The house is beautiful, surrounded back and front with well-kept gardens and a fish pond in back. They have a very old white cat named Poof. I've studied continually at the house, being provided everything I asked for. I read, among other things, Liber 7, Liber 65, the Equinox of the Gods, and as much as I could of Liber LL with commentary, Liber Legis. Commentaries number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of volume 1 of In the Continuum. Parts of book 4, Collected Works, a tape of Regarde doing the pentagram ritual, and articles by and about Crowley. Phyllis has answered all my questions straightforward, making no signs of reservation. She cast my nativity and discussed it with me at length. She taught me to say will and how to perform resh and the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. Grady has been wonderful in instructing of the use of the Thoth deck and also answered all my questions. Both Phyllis and Grady have highly developed sense of humor, and we all laughed a lot. I found no dogmatic Crowleyanity, but a living example of Thelema, a very favorable archetype of the law being lived today. To Soror Merrill and Frater Jimenez Alpha, Caliph, I offer my deepest thanks, not only for their gracious hospitality, but their shining example. And that was written Monday, November 17th, 6 a.m. in Dublin, California. And that's where I think I'm going to stop today. I'm not sure if I'm going to be sharing much more of this, but I will tell you that the diary continues right up until I took my first degree in the same place. So until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself. Please, I'm trying to remember to be good to myself. And be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will. Bye-bye.